Hey guys, Zayf the Scholar here. So some of you may have caught a recent video of mine where I used FreeCam mods to show how FromSoft goes about staging the cutscenes we see throughout Elden Ring. Rather than simply relying on pre-rendered video files, Miyazaki and his team instead manipulate the in-game models, lighting, and effects in real time. This means that if we play the cutscenes while using a FreeCam mod, we can get some completely new perspectives on how certain shots were accomplished. It's almost like being able to move around freely behind the scenes on a movie set while the actors are in the middle of filming a scene. And it honestly still kind of blows my mind. So in this video, I thought we could take a look at another cutscene you guys asked me a lot about in the comments. Promised Consort Radahn's Phase 2 transition. And I have to say, this cutscene has even more interesting trickery going on than Messmer's. So strap in and let's get into it. Okay, so first off, when I made my video examining Messmer, I was admittedly lacking a bit of information on why they hid a second Messmer in the wall. For one thing, I wasn't aware of just how prevalent this practice is in Elden Ring. And while it doesn't seem to be something they do with every two-phase boss, at the very least it's something also implemented with Promised Consort Radahn, as we can find both him and Miquella cuddling in this cozy little nook under the staircase leading up to the Gate of Divinity. Cute. And while it seems I was right about hiding character models in the wall being a way for FromSoft to avoid loading in assets mid-cutscene, it turns out there's a bit more to it than that. For one thing, as many of you guys pointed out in the comments, I didn't realize that the HP bars of both models are linked together, meaning that if you strike one, the other will react and flinch as well. We can see here, for instance, how Miquella and Radahn in the wall react as I strike Phase 1 Radahn. Some of you also pointed out that for certain fights, speedrunners will actually exploit these linked HP bars by finding ways to kill the stationary out-of-bounds second model without having to deal with the first one. And I think this might be what's happening to all those posters on Reddit who reported Radahn dying on them as they talked to Ansbach before they even entered into Radahn's boss room. His second form out of bounds probably just fell into the abyss due to some glitch. Now, getting into the phase change cutscene, I want to immediately note another technique that FromSoft and I assume other game developers use in order to cut down on resource usage when rendering cutscenes in real time, which is temporarily unloading things that won't be visible in their chosen camera angle. As a perfect and pretty humorous example, take a look at this shot of Radahn. In the original shot, only Radahn's braids are visible, and we see his sword being dramatically pushed into the ground. But if we zoom out a bit, we can see that he straight up goes bald with only his braids left intact, I guess to avoid having to load all the hair on his helmet and save on resources. It's pretty funny to see the red line without his glorious red mane. We can also notice that the sword is removed from Radahn's hand, which instead stays stationary, which makes sense. Why bother animating the arm if it won't be visible anyway? And this type of efficiency with assets also leads to some silliness when viewing the scene where Miquella walks through the Gate of Divinity.
Lord brother, at long last you are returned.
Since only his lower body and hair are visible in the cutscene, that's all that gets loaded in, leading to some semi-horrifying results, as Miquella exits the gate as nothing more than a pair of disembodied walking legs. But again, it makes perfect sense that FromSoft wouldn't waste time and energy animating Miquella's upper body if they were sure it wouldn't be visible in the end anyway. I was also really fascinated with how FromSoft played with camera perspective to create the illusion of Radahn towering over our Tarnished even more than he actually does. First, in order to get the Gate of Divinity properly framed in the shot, They elevate both Radahn and the Tarnished models floating in the air. But Radahn's model is clearly positioned way higher up vertically, making him seem much more massive and imposing.
Tarnished one. Aspiring lord of the old order.
And again, I'm reminded of the smoke and mirrors at play when films are made. Kinda like how Peter Jackson used all sorts of practical tricks with perspective to make the hobbits look smaller than everyone else in the Lord of the Rings movies. Lastly, I was curious to see how Miquella descends onto Radahn's back. But there isn't much interesting happening here since he just sort of appears from out of nowhere rather than anything unexpected. Still though, it is pretty cool to see this play out from a different perspective than the one we're given in the official cutscene.
Tarnished one. Aspiring lord of the old order. If you have known sin, if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. To I, Miquella, and my promised consort, Radahn.
Zayf in post here. One final interesting thing I noticed while going through all of my footage is that Miquella's eyes actually aren't closed. If we look closely, his eyelids are in fact slightly open, and we can see his pale blue pupils peeking through the gap. Maybe this is common knowledge, but I never noticed this before, so I thought it might be worth mentioning. I don't think we can read too much into this in terms of lore, but it is kind of interesting that despite the Shadowview Cross being marked as the location where Miquella left one of his eyes behind, his model is rendered with both. This stands in contrast, for example, with his sister Melania, who lost both her eyes to the Scarlet Rot, and whose model is lacking eyeballs of any kind, both externally and internally. It's totally speculation, but I wonder if there were plans for a cutscene where Miquella's eyes were completely open. Perhaps part of the scene that we were shown a glimpse of in the DLC trailer, but was ultimately removed from the game. But I can't escape the feeling I might be overlooking something here, so if you have any thoughts or insights on Miquella's eyeballs, please let me know. In any case, I've always found this kind of behind-the-scenes stuff super interesting to learn about, and I'm hoping you guys will as well. Are there any other cutscenes you'd like to see me break down in this way? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. It really helps out my channel a lot, and I genuinely appreciate it. And hey, I'd also appreciate it if you considered supporting my work by becoming a patron, a YouTube member, or buying me a coffee. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.